Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What's up, guys? Dave here from Metal Epidemic, joined by Duncan and by Kyle for another album review. And for this review, Duncan, Kyle and I have been checking out the new album from American deathcore band Enterprise Earth. The band's new album, The Chosen, will be released on January 14th via MNRK Heavy. So, we reacted to one of the new tracks from this album. I was going to say a few weeks ago, but by the time you watch this, probably a couple of months ago.
Well, let's not break character here. It was last year.
Last year. So I think like when we watched the video, it seemed like something that we were all kind of interested in hearing more of.
Some of us more than others.
Some of us more than others. That's fair. Weirdly, after chatting about the bassist on that video, I think like Kyle, you might have remarked on his bass and stuff. He's no longer in the band. So don't know what's going on there, but they announced just recently that
Curse of Kyle strikes again.
he was gone. The band's new album, though, The Chosen, this will be their 5th full-length album, which was engineered, produced, mixed and mastered by the band's guitarist, Gabe Mangold, except for the drums, which were tracked with producer Jason Sukoff, who's worked with August Burns Red, Demon Hunter and Death Angel. Yes, I said on the reaction that I quite enjoyed that track, Reanimate, Disintegrate. I think a couple of us commented on the riffs, were quite...
We compared them to a particular band, which from a snippet from them was very apt.
Yes.
Which I'm kind of actually glad about, to be honest, because I always get skeptical when I hear a single from a band, like a single from a forthcoming album that sounds like something where you're like, or have they tailored that to get people interested, or is that how they actually sound? You know what I mean? Are they trying to capitalize? There's quite a few bands guilty of this, trying to capitalize by releasing a single which gives maybe a false impression of what the album actually sounds like, to get people that listen to bands that are adjacent that maybe don't pay attention to purchase the album name.
I see where you're going with that, Duncan.
But no, this is all the way through this, so that's fine.
Yeah, there was a bit of an after the burial type vibe.
Smidge.
Yes, going on that track, which I am not averse to. Like I'm a big fan, but actually, I think after hearing the album, I think there are better tracks on the album, where they show a bit more of themselves as a band, and find that it's not as easy to make comparisons, to other bands like After the Burial. Yeah,
Reanimate, Disintegrate is a single.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like through and through, listening to it, this is a very, it's not formulaic, but it's a much more cleaned up version of what they're doing in other songs. You know what I mean? It's got that, it hits the particular structure of a single. It plays almost the way you would expect a deathcore single to play, although it has those flourishes out with. And we did remark at the time the music video was actually a music video. I had a producer and a director and everything, which we kind of enjoyed, and it did blow my mind and still blows my mind that they are only a 4-piece, because these sound heavier than the 3-piece.
No doubt it's
3. Oh wow, that's right, the bass. Well, I'm assuming they'll be getting a bass player in.
Another trio.
That makes no sense. That was 2 weeks ago, that joke, Kyle. So you know what I mean, like for the sound wise, the aforementioned After the Burial have 2 guitarists playing 2 mega decent guitars to achieve said sound, and here they have 1 guitarist, and I would say still achieving some heaviness. So, well played.
Did you say that? So yes.
I would say there's maybe a banger or 2 in this album, Dave.
Really?
The kids quantify the measurement of heaviness by bangers.
Would they do a dab when listening to this album?
Right, so in a previous recording we were making references to the 90s, now we're doing the 2010s. Who are you right now?
The dab's still cool, is it not?
No.
No?
No. You want to know how you know it's not? See if you do it in front of your kid.
Uh-huh.
that's how you know it's not cool, because
Right.
they like, if they're like, no, don't do that, that means that, you know, it is cool and they're cringed by you doing it. But see if they're like,
what are you doing?
Well, that's when they know it's not cool anymore.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you always, the barometer of coolness is always your children.
Yeah,
It's
you
not
do that
us,
thing in front of them.
it's not
They know
us
it's not
hip
cool anymore.
guys on the
fucking ruined
internet
it.
talking about metal albums. That's not a barometer of coolness. However, I will say this: Enterprise here, exuding coolness. There we go. That's what we call a linking device or a segue back to the review.
Like a lot. This is it's predominantly a deathcore album for the most part. But as I said, it's not the only kind of genre these guys bring to the table. Deathcore does often, come part and parcel with a bit of death metal, and that's here in many of the more aggressive, fast-paced parts of the album. Tracks like "They Have No Honor" or "You Can See Me" definitely lean more into the kind of the blasts and the rapid kick drums, with riffs that kind of evoke that kind of darker, more sinister death metal tone. "They Have No Honor" in particular pushes a few different styles within parts of kind of symphonic metal. There's some kind of blackened sections, and there's even some like kind of thrashy, almost like hardcore type rhythms towards the end of the track. But that kind of symphonic kind of blackened streak is something that comes up a few times throughout the album. But it never like outstays its welcome, so it never becomes like repetitive or too much. It's usually followed by something like colossally heavy or like kind of groove laden. And those grooves, they come thick and fast on this album. Track 4, one of my personal faves, "I Have to Escape." It's all about them sweet, sweet grooves. But again, they don't just kind of let the track kind of plod on in a kind of predictable fashion. They kind of bring in some like almost like kind of Brand of Sacrifice type symphonics. There's even towards the end of the track, there's some kind of metalcore kind of type kind of lead work as well, kind of blended in. I think another surprise for me was the amount of melody and kind of atmosphere that they inject into this album, almost in a newer kind of Whitechapel or kind of Rivers of Nile type way, and that really comes to the forefront on track 7, "Overpass." And I have to say, like, the vocal melodies here are completely on point. Dan Watson, the vocalist, sounds absolutely phenomenal on this track. And he drops melody in throughout the album, here and there, but on "Overpass," I think he really delivers those melodies in such a big way. And it seems like that track is going to be the ballad, type track of the album, with it sitting like kind of right in the middle, to break up the two halves. And then, just when you think, okay, so we're getting to the end of this ballad track, the ending comes, and oh my god, that ending, it is just utter filth, disgustingly heavy, and just guttural sounding, which I loved. But that like kind of atmosphere I was talking about is there like musically as well, whether it's in like the kind of interlude type tracks like "The Tower," or sitting in the background of a chorus on tracks like "Legends Never Die." You can even hear it in some of the verses on tracks like "My Blood," "My Blood," was it "My Blood" there, "Satiation." Is that how you pronounce that?
"My Blood," their satiation.
Satiation.
Yes.
It's a strange word.
It's a very satisfied Satan.
But that again, like, is just another element that kind of feeds into this kind of huge sound these guys offer up on The Chosen. I think, and I need to give out a shout out to the guitarist though, Gabe Mangold, because he is delivering the fucking goods here. Like, not only is he in charge of the recording, the mixing, the mastering, the production, but his guitar parts are fucking awesome. Like, the amount of diversity here is unreal, from the different styles, the different tones, textures, and the solos. My god, the solos. Like, I'm a drummer, so usually solos are like one of the last things on my mind, but the solos on this really grabbed my attention. Even just the kind of the dexterity of the playing, the note choices, and the speed that he plays at. Some of the best work I've heard in a long time on an album like this. And to go back to the "Overpass," the lead work on that track is fantastic. And the solo on Skeleton Key was the other one that I really liked as well. He's got a little bit of Dimebag in him just at times, about a certain riff or a certain note that he plays, or a certain kind of sequence of notes. I'm just like, oh, that's a wee bit Dimebag. Just the kind of flow and style he's playing. But I thought he did a stellar job in this, really cracking guitarist. I don't have many criticisms about this, to be honest. I think the only kind of small criticisms I had where I think it's maybe a touch too long as an album. It's like clocks in about 70 minutes. And don't get me wrong, there's a ton of variation on this record. That's not the issue here at all. But I felt like when I got to that kind of like almost like 50-minute mark, going into the kind of hour, I was kind of feeling like I think it's probably time to kind of wrap this up. I felt like they'd kind of delivered all the kind of goods by that point, and I wasn't really sure if it was really needed another like 15-20 minutes on top of that. It wasn't an album I felt like I could get through in one sitting, if you know what I mean. Maybe that's just me. I felt like the first couple of listens I was fully in. They were my kind of my favourite listens. But the third and the fourth listen, I felt a bit more difficult because of the length of the album, and two, because I kind of heard all the surprises by that point. I think like fans of the band will probably love the fact that they're getting 70 minutes of music on this album, though. So it swings and roundabouts. But aside for that, not really much negative things to say about this. I think as Duncan said, there's a few absolute bangers on this, and I can imagine when I was listening, I was thinking these are going to go down like fucking awesome in a live setting. I can just imagine the crowd going kind of wild for a lot of those tracks, especially those kind of big groovy tracks. Some really cool riffs on those. What about you guys, Duncan? What did you think after obviously you'd heard the reaction? Did the rest of the album, did it live up?
I mean, yeah, and a short summation, yes it did. There is a lot of really, really cool shit on this album. It's interesting, you touched on the symphonic stuff, and at the time when we were mentioning the aforementioned band that used it, I believe one of my issues was that it came in kind of late in the album, and it didn't make sense to me. It was cool when they did it, but it would have been cool if there'd been something somewhere else to kind of link it, ground it to the overall sound. And I think that's where these guys get it spot on. It's not all the way through the album, but it's in enough spots throughout the album where it feels thematically on purpose, and it links the tracks together. And that's just one detail. In fact, the beauty of this album as a whole, and there is a negative to this that we're going to get to, is that the elements that you utilize are not always overutilized, but they are peppered through the album in spots that make it feel cohesive as a listen. So I thought that was really rewarding as well. Production is fucking flawless. Now that might upset some people. I'm not pointing fingers, but to me, it was absolutely flawless. And like listening to it, we've talked about it before. It's a double-edged sword. I argue that deathcore probably benefits, modern deathcore anyway, definitely benefits from a pristine sound and production, and it's definitely in here. But they don't go down the trappings that a lot of bands we listened to last year kind of fell into, like a lot of gimmicks, a lot of ominous atmosphere for the sake of just filling up sound. That is not in here. Everything feels very purposeful, and I get a feeling that you probably find that your man Gabe, who's doing the production on this, has a lot of input in that. That feels like someone with almost a singular vision of how tracks should sound, but also how to purposefully fill out the sound, and it's used really, really, really clever. It's great. He's a very talented, not only producer but guitarist. Some of the solos are fucking great. Some of the riffing and the grooves when they're hitting are absolutely crushing. Vocally, I love this. I think this guy has got an incredible range and an incredible voice, and it kind of surprised me that granted, I'm not a mark for deathcore, but I've literally never heard of this band before. I'm not saying that there's, I'm, to use the word barometer again, the barometer of cool when it comes to deathcore, but they're an American band doing deathcore at a high level. I just assumed I would have heard of them by now in some way, shape or form, and I hadn't. I think you're right. I think maybe not the weakest song, but definitely on the more weaker end or spectrum is track number 2, Reanimate Disintegrate, which is the single, but I understand why that's done that way. Also, the atmosphere of that track lends really well to the music video they've done, so I'd highly recommend anyone that hasn't seen it goes out and check it. It's a really, really, really cool video that has a story behind it that actually works really well with the song. Biggest issue here, and you're going to guess what it is, length. This album is far too long. Far too long. No deathcore album should be longer than an hour. And that's just a fact. Even though they are doing things that make like really interesting introductions, there's a couple of like there's a couple of tracks here that easily go over the 6-minute mark. And when I look at those, I like those tracks as standalone, but I feel that when I was listening to the album, you come into these long instrumental things that I actually wish they'd just separated from the track themselves. I actually feel that not every single one of them, but I felt that on certain ones, I just felt like, well, this is a technique we've seen done before in an earlier track. This is your acoustic pick build-up bit into your huge heavy section that comes after. They're really cleverly placed on the album, though, that they come right after something that is particularly crushing to give you that build back in. So I understand the placement. I just think it's, out of all the tools, is something that's done just a little bit too much. But it's written really well. So my criticism is that they're giving us too many well-written songs. There's too much well-written content on here.
Yeah.
As an album, and I think you summed it up 100% perfectly, Dave. Once you know what's in the bag of tricks, it's a long listen.
Yeah.
And I think, like, when it comes to deathcore, there's only so many tricks you can utilize that are surprising. Enterprise Earth have a ton of tricks. I mean, like, loads of them in their bag. And after about the second listen, I personally felt I gleamed a lot of that out. And then it came down to a position that I don't like usually being in, which is listening to the album in sections. I'd split this album into 3 to listen to it. And those 3 listens are fucking great, but it's an exhausting album to listen to front to back. And you're saying, like, I don't know, I'm not the mark for this sort of music. I don't know if that's just now the thing. We've come across quite a few deathcore albums in the last 6-7 months that are easily going over 1 hour. Maybe we're just behind the curve on this, and maybe that's the new thing. Maybe deathcore albums are just longer, but it surprises me because the combination of the 2 genres that are coming together in deathcore are death metal and hardcore, and neither one have a history of having albums over an hour. So I don't know how we've ended up here. Enterprise Earth, though, I mean, as first listens to a band I've never heard before that obviously have a legacy, it's fucking great. I mean, it's an absolute blinder of an album. It's just a little bit too long for this old man. So, yeah,
I agree. Kyle?
Yeah, I'll echo that statement. It's an hour and 10 minutes long, and it's like, whew. What I would have done in this day and age, genre like defining things aside, is I would have released this as 2 EPs 6 months apart, have it all recorded all together, and just split it in half, and then have the whole year to write a whole new bunch of stuff. Or I would say go on tour, but it's still impossible. So. But I mean, yeah. Aside from that, I'm not a fan of deathcore production. You know this. I think this was done to a lesser degree.
Where's this come from?
How dare you? I've never heard this before in my life. You're not a fan of fake fucking drums? But on this one, it wasn't done to such a crazy degree. I mean, you could pick it up on the drums, definitely through the fast passages with the kick drums and stuff. But honestly, it wasn't that distracting as a lot of other deathcore I've heard. So I thought, I mean, it's there, definitely, but it didn't smack me in the face as much as a lot of other deathcore I've heard. So I quite enjoyed that. And what really stuck out to me was definitely the songwriting and the variation and everything, from something that says we're a deathcore band, and you do not expect that amount of melody, and it was almost like heavy metal solo shred, you know. It was fucking fantastic. It just came out of nowhere. I was like, whoa, that's what you need. Yeah, it shouldn't be an hour of just doom and gloom and heavy this and heavy that, because then it loses its power. So I really enjoyed the fact that they kept it so varied in so many different ways. It wasn't just, crushingly heavy, then kind of quiet, then more crushingly heavy, then a bit of a clean bit. It was like, you've got a melodic bit, and then you've got a symphonic bit and some black metal stuff, and then heavy metal shredding, and then some other thing, and it was like, this is really good. But yeah, until about halfway through, then exactly, you've heard it all, you know what they're doing, and then the next half an hour, 40 minutes, you're like, oh my fucking God. oh crap, can I make it through this? And yeah, the first listen I did get all the way through because you kind of have to, but I mean, it wasn't difficult, but it did feel like towards the end, like, okay, it's time to wrap it up now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the subsequent 2 listens I had to split it in half as well, and that's where I thought this should have been 2 EPs. That would have kept everybody happy for the entire year to be more excited about new music they haven't heard before, and maybe not get as tired on these, was it 14 songs? Yeah, 14 songs. Oof, that's a long album.
Yeah.
In 2021, maybe it doesn't make so much sense to release like that anymore, But saying that, I think this is actually my favorite deathcore album I've ever heard.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you guys know it's not my favorite thing, but this is really, really good. The songwriting on this is fantastic, and the variation and everything, and the skill of the guitar player, the production is good, the vocal range is unbelievably killer. The only thing I wish is I could hear more bass, but so yeah, I've quite enjoyed it.
Nice one. Okay, so ratings for this new one from Enterprise Earth. This is one of the albums, I mentioned this before we started recording, that I was like struggling to score, like, because my first couple of listens were high, and then my subsequent listens after that, it felt like it came down a little bit. So I still feel like I'm between 2 scores, but I think for the most part it's a very solid album. As you guys have said, that there's plenty, like a load of variation on this. Like it's hard, if I was going to say it's hard to get bored with this, but like at 70 minutes, it still does take its toll after a certain point.
There's still too much of a very good thing.
Yeah. It's not necessarily anything I haven't heard done before, but it's probably one of the deathcore albums that has the most variation in it. As Kyle said, that usually you get a lot of the same things over and over again, but these guys definitely cram a lot into this. This is definitely one of the stronger albums from the genre. I do agree with both of you, though. It is too long. I'd say like 15-20 minutes too long for me personally. But if you've been following the band since day one, this is album 5, you may absolutely love the fact that you're getting 70 minutes worth of material from these guys. So that's just the way it is. I think I'm going to go 4. I think I'm going to go 4 out of 5. That's going to, I'm between 2 scores, but I'm going to go 4. I think, 4. Kyle, Duncan, what are you thinking?
I'm the same as you. 4. I think if I took a couple of songs out this one, it would easily be a 4.5. I wouldn't even have to think about it. But I think once again, we're here to review albums, and I think that's where the sticky wicket comes in. I think these guys would be fucking amazing live.
Yeah.
My only thing, and this is what I would say to deathcore bands in general, and this once again is a personal choice and not a slight against you. I think this album's fucking great. If your album is over an hour long, in this genre, unless you are consistently doing new, really cool things every single album, you are essentially shortening, I think, overall the interest in listening to your band. I think if you fling if all the tools and all the tricks are in this album, unless they go away and acquire, like Liam Neeson, a certain set of skills, you know what I mean? It gets to that point where it's almost the length of two albums, like what used to be 2 deathcore albums. So you get to that point where you're like, what are they going to do next? And if an album comes out in 2 years, how much can you bring to that? Prog bands get away with it because prog bands can go away and write 15-minute instrumentals with fucking pan flutes and ocarinas in the background, and that sounds great. But in this realm, I don't know. I like the techniques. I love the music. I think it's really well produced. And I think vocally it's absolutely stunning. And I think it is probably one of the better examples of a deathcore band I've heard in a while. I just think that the length of the album doesn't ingratiate a single sit listen. I think it becomes too overwhelming. And I've been consistent on this one. There are a few bands that I've heard in the last year that have done exactly the same, where I'm like, that on paper this is fucking great, but the actual listening experience is how I listen to music, because I listen to albums, I don't listen to songs. I did kind of feel it was more that it was just exhaustion by the end, and by the third listen couldn't do it all in a winner. So And that might be like, I'm sure people will just say it's because I'm old, and I will accept that on the chin. You have that to look forward to, listener.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is this album is very well balanced between the styles.
Yep, 100%.
So I don't know, like on future listens or future releases even, they could maybe hone in more on particular styles that they've used on this album more. I don't know if, you know,
if that's the length of the album, though, they're honing on that style for an hour. So this is my thing, you know what I mean? If this is a one-off, it's interesting, but you would have to, I think that's the moving forward. My only advice is, but then, you know what I mean? I keep thinking about it. If I'm them, and I'm in a writing mode and everything's coming together and these songs sound this good, then make it a fucking hour. Yeah. Who cares? Like, who cares about people getting too much of something? Like you said before, if you're a fan of Enterprise Earth.
The thing is, listening, like, trends these days, people pick out their favourite songs and listen to them anyway. So, I mean, people probably sit through and listen to the whole album to figure out which songs they like best. And they'll just stick them in a playlist.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But then that goes with the other thing is splitting it in 2 EPs and having people keep you in their mind for longer because you're releasing a set of songs, another set of songs, and then you've got more time to write more to release. It's like, but I mean, it is what it is, and it is very good, just a bit long.
Your grade would be then?
What's your score?
Oh, did you? Mine? I don't know, something like a 4. Let's go with a 4.
Excellent. Perfect.
Is this criminal guilty or innocent? I don't know. Innocent, maybe. I mean, what do you guys think, Kai? Guilty. All right. Murdered someone. Aye. All right. Sorry. Guilty. You should have fucking told me.
Hey, he did it. Look at him.
Excellent. A trio of 4s on this one from
Let's end this call.
So this one drops on January 14th. It's called The Chosen. It's coming out on MNRK Heavy, which I think was the old E1 Heavy. I think they've renamed or rebranded or something.
All right, cool.
If you want to check them out.
They've renamed to the sound you make when you hear something that's heavy.
Oh my god. I will put links below to their Facebook and to their Bandcamp so you can check out the pre-order. Let us know what you think. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions. Is it too long? Let us know what you think. Check out the singles. Stick some comments in below. We'll get back to you. Maybe. That is the review. Thank you for checking out. We will be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.